Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Three Idiots Talk Aquariums podcast. We are very, very glad to have you back. We very much appreciate the support. We hope that you have been enjoying the episodes. That's what we all love. So, what have you guys been having going on in the fish rooms recently? Has anything exciting happened to you? You guys?
I got some new fishes, so that was cool.
Nice. What new fishes
Yeah.
did you get?
I got some Tropheus, which may or may not have been a bad choice. We'll see.
Why is that?
Well, the previous guy had quite a few more than when I ended up getting them, and he's killed quite a few. So I may have purchased. I may have purchased a problem, or I may have purchased something cool. So the time will tell.
Yeah, I suppose there's only one way to find out.
Yeah, and I have had obviously mixed success with Tropheus so far. Limited success. So
I like that you use the word success and not luck. I really dislike when people say I've been really lucky with something. It's been, it's nothing to do with luck. I've been giving everything what they need to your fish what they need. You'll be successful, not you'll be lucky.
I do think there is an element. There is an element of sometimes there is an element of dumb luck. Like your water might be perfect for them coming out of the tap, or you might have just lucked into the right environment or size tank or colony or whatever growing them out, something like that. But yeah, it is for the most part relatively scientific, I guess. Like you can.
Whether you choose to be scientific is another thing, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, that sounds exciting. I guess we'll have to. Well, I do know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What species of Tropheus are we talking about here?
Icola.
Nice.
Tropheus Icola. Cool. So they're the cool ones. Yeah.
So it's like a cooler version of the Boise, basically.
Yeah. Exactly.
If someone just got a Du Boise and just turned the color up 20%, that would be basically what you get.
Yeah, and when I initially he was selling them for too much money for me to risk it, so I just left them. And then he contacted me and dropped the price a bit for me to take the risk, basically. So
did you not want to risk it for the brisket, or
risk it for the biscuit,
or risk it for the biscuit, or any other thing that rhymes like that?
Risk it for the Tropheus.
Yeah, I can't even. It's far too early to try and think of anything like that. I didn't want to blow it for the bloaters. How does that sound?
I accept it.
Sounds horrible. Please don't say that.
Say it every time from now on.
Sorry, DIY Daddy.
That's the spirit. That's the spirit.
But anyway, so yeah, they seem to be settling in so well so far, and started them out on metronidazole flake for 2 weeks just to clean them out and hopefully make sure nothing's still brewing inside them, no infections or anything that they've hopefully brought in from stress or carrying, and then hope like hell there's enough of them to not murder each other.
Because didn't you, if I remember correctly, didn't you already have some Icola?
Yeah, so the last Icola that I had, I went Aquaworld when they were closing down. I went in there.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, and I bought all their the last of all their Tropheus, and they had the Boise colony there, which I've still got some of. What is he doing? He's having conversation.
He's talking to himself.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I bought all the Du Boise, the last of the Du Boise, and they had a tank with 5, like a 2.5-foot tank with 5 Icola in it. And there were 4 big ones and 1 smashed little one. And so I bought them, and it turns out the 4 big ones are actually females, and the smashed little one was a male. So after
Sounds
I
like
put them in
Cam's
a big,
house.
battered male.
Actually does. Teenage daughters and whatnot.
Yeah, a bit outnumbered here too, which doesn't really help. But
I don't relate.
and so basically, I only ended up with 4 females, and then I had to hunt around for ages and found a big male, and I chucked him in, and then they bred once or twice, and then he killed them one by one by one.
Well, that's
No
not ideal.
matter how big the tank was, no matter what fish I put in it, there just wasn't enough to spread the aggression. Out of those spawnings, one random pair survived, so I did have a pair there, which I added in with this colony that I bought, and that pair seemed to get along, sort of. Female had a hard time, but they bred twice or something, and they had four or five fry, which I gave to a mate.
Do you quarantine your fish coming into you, or just risk it for the brisket, as it were?
They go into the fish room, but into their own tank. So,
so essentially, yes.
Yeah, essentially, yes. I did have a plan to have a separate quarantine somewhere in my house, but I just don't have room for it at the moment.
Yet is the word.
Yeah, I'd like to have another tank set up somewhere where everything new, well, a couple of tanks set up where everything new doesn't even go into the fish room.
Yeah.
A secondary fish room.
Yeah, I've got a secondary fish room, but it is due to be demolished, and it's filled to the roof of cardboard at the moment from my bloody business stuff. So it's not very exciting.
Why don't you get rid of your Holden and do it in that garage? I mean, that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Man, if Brian could, he'd probably punch you in the face right now for saying that.
Yeah. I just that comment was so stupid it doesn't even deserve a response.
Oh, I did. I got you in the field.
You wouldn't get rid of your favorite wagon, so you know.
Yeah, that Toyota Aqua's gotta have somebody live.
Yeah. I don't even think they've got into the hybrid technology down there.
Still horse drawn.
Yeah.
Right. Say what you want. That's fine.
Running
I
on
hilarious.
I got my jab in. It was way better than what you guys were throwing back.
Fair enough.
It was actually a good, considering we're both still half asleep. You've got us. You've obviously had a couple of coffees already.
No, that's my first mouthful of coffee. Like I said, I totally flaked on my first alarm. My second alarm went off, and I literally jumped. I didn't even put my shoes on. I jumped to the bed and jumped in the car and got here. I'm just as awake as you guys today.
Oh, well,
nice.
why don't you delight us by telling us what you've been doing in your fish tanks recently?
I rode I massively rode the roller coaster this on Monday, I think it was. I've been working really hard to get my Julie Corridoras, I think the Trileniatus might be the way you pronounce it, I can't remember now, to spawn, and I shone my spawn checking torch in the tank, and I saw an egg, and I jumped, and I clapped, and I said a couple of really happy expletives, and I was jumping like a little leprechaun. And then when I put my hand in the tank to get the egg out, it was all mushy and gross and stuff. So I crashed pretty quickly after that, and I was a little bit upset. So that was a fun time. But I'm excited that I had an egg. I got a single egg, so that's better than nothing at this point. So yeah.
Probably next time you'll be able to catch them earlier then, I guess.
Yeah. I figured because it was a Monday, so that either spawned on the possibly the Friday night, Saturday morning, something like that, and maybe gone through the entire weekend without me noticing. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, so makes sense.
Them going mushy probably means they weren't fertile. Is that what you're saying?
I would suspect they either weren't fertile or they were already beginning to mold, and I hadn't sort of noticed the mold when I shone the torch, and because I was just excited that I saw an egg.
Yeah. So they just need more time or something else to get them sort of.
Well,
producing.
Yeah, being it's the first egg that I've seen, I'm assuming that it's just a learning type thing. Not every fish don't always get it right first time around, so maybe the next couple they might be a bit better.
And with fish, I found, like humans, the males mature a lot later than the girls.
Yeah.
So the girls can often produce eggs, but the males can't
really.
produce the bits they need to do.
Yeah.
And like humans, they take a long time to mature. Some just never mature, like my Kalinga Golds, you know.
Yeah.
Or us.
Still
Or
talk
us.
about it.
So yeah, that happened, and I had my gold lasers spawn a couple times, so I've managed to collect the eggs from them, which has been nice. And I had a very large zebra danio spawn yesterday, so I took the eggs from them and had something else spawn. CPDs had another spawn, took a few more eggs out of that. Last lot I got to fry stage and then couldn't get them any further after a few days. They all died, so fingers crossed this one goes a little bit better.
So the zebra danios will be cool too, eh?
Yeah.
I'm actually
I
really
sell
excited.
a heap, so
I'm actually really excited to see your tank with like 200 or 300 zebra danios in it. You know, I think that'll be me.
zipping about everywhere.
Yeah, I think that'll be a real. Are they just standards or long fins?
They're carrying the long fin gene, but these ones are just all showing standard fins.
But you might have some fry come through potentially that are long fin.
Possibly, and then work from there. And looks like my glow light danios are getting pretty randy and ready to rock and roll. So I put an egg catcher in there last night. So hopefully this afternoon, we get a bit of action from them because they are super cool fish and super duper underrated. And I absolutely
which
love
ones
them.
are those?
So they're the orange ones with the like little tiger strikes in the body.
Sorry,
you know the
Glow light
danio.
danio.
Yeah.
Glow lights. Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, glow lights are good. Yeah, yeah.
Cool little fish. So I'm planning on stocking my display tank I'm building at the moment with glow light danios. So if I can get a couple spawns while they're sitting in quarantine before that's ready, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, win-win situation there.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, I haven't had too much exciting stuff happening recently, to be honest. So, yeah, just been kind of chugging along. I can't really actually think of anything exciting that's happened. I was cleaning out my Living Stony tank the other day, just because I got this old sponge filter that like drops off all these little bits of sponge all the time. So I do like a big gravel vac all the time to get rid of it. And I found a whole bunch of fry in there, so that's kind of fun, shall we
Because you
say?
weren't stripping them. You weren't stripping them, were you? You were just leaving them.
Yeah,
alone.
I was like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, probably they're not going to survive, but whatever happens. And I like lifted up this little rock thing, and then like under it there was like this little cave area, and I don't know, there was like heaps of them. I was like, oh god, I'm gonna get overrun with the things, aren't I? So we'll see how that goes.
Even though they're quite a cool fish, you're just struggling to sell them, so you don't want to breed them anymore. And the problem is with them, I guarantee you, as soon as you don't breed them or don't have them, everyone will want them again. So yeah, it's just what it is.
Yeah, it's not the best fish, I don't think, for the average person, but a very cool fish if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think they are a cool fish, but you just have to have a big enough tank and nothing else small with them.
Big enough fish.
Although if they're not eating their own fry, that's weird.
Yeah, I think they're just the little fry were just hanging out in this little cave and not coming out.
They just lucked into a good place. Yeah,
and then came along Cam and lifted up their cave, and they probably, I don't know what happened to them after that, but
have you still got the appearance? Have you still got the appearance? Why don't you put some cuckoos in there?
There is. They're just not. They're just not doing. They're just not doing their job properly.
Yeah, right.
Morons.
So that kind of makes sense. I've got some fish I don't want to continue to produce, and they continue to produce. Cuckoo them.
Yeah, and I mean, producing cuckoos would be much more fun, but they just don't want to participate in my plan. So whatever.
Yeah, fair enough.
I see how it is. But yeah, so that is it for me. I want to.
Hey, I've got a quick question before you go any further.
Sure.
Did Luxon give you a portfolio in his caucus or not?
Yeah, bro. I'm in charge of fish tanks. Fuck, I was trying to think of something funny to say and I couldn't think of anything. I was like, God, there's definitely a joke in there, but it's too early.
I thought you'd be the minister for like
Most of a weird armpit.
media and radio waves, because we're podcasters. You see, we're famous
Yeah, man.
podcasters. So yeah, you can
Yeah.
push. You can do what any good politician does and push their own agenda.
Push my
So
personal interests. Yeah.
push your own personal interests and make sure that you're set up for life and your portfolio is good after you leave.
Oh, well, I'll make a call
I
and
think
I'll
it'd
see
be
what we
good
can
after
come
they
up with.
leave.
So that comment was related to Young Cam's nickname of the politician, because he just talks absolute
I don't
shit.
think there's ever.
and he's
I don't think
done-
anyone's ever
and
told
he's
me that
done-
before.
And he's done political studies, so it pretty much fits.
Yeah.
Sure.
Ask a question, doesn't give the answer. Swindles the way around through something else. Starts talking about
Yeah,
something
man.
completely different.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So
I like it.
to talk about something completely different, I want to introduce a
See?
new segment that I've designed that I haven't told you guys about.
Hey!
So I want to do like a listener question segment at this point. So obviously we can't do it this time because I've not told anyone, so no one's seen any questions yet. But what I was thinking is, if you guys listening at home, or hey, wherever you're listening, this is the beauty of podcasts, wherever you're listening, if you have questions like, even like something specific, like how do I deal with this problem that I'm having in my tank? What do you think would be the best idea to achieve such and such a goal? If you send in those questions, and then we can pick one and answer them at the start of every episode. So the place you want to send them to, you can send them you can send them on Facebook or whatever, but I was saying it'd probably be easier if you send it to
Facebook
our
page is
email.
probably best, or the Facebook
Oh.
page.
Well, yeah, send it to the Facebook page or the email, which is podcast3idiots@gmail.com. But I'll leave the all the contact information and the contact links in the descriptions, so that's where you can find it. But if you have any questions, I'd love for you to send them in. Now,
Well,
if this
do we
segment,
accept,
for the segment to go
accept-
well, I need listener participation. So please, otherwise I will feel very sad.
do we accept the question, why do I continue to torture myself by listening to three idiots who talk about aquariums?
No, we do not.
And,
I won't send
also-
that then.
Also, that question would need to be asked, and there'd have to be an assumption that people are actually listening to us.
We
And
would
care
need
enough
some,
to ask a question.
It needs some listeners first, so that probably isn't going to happen.
Oh,
Cam's
Only one way to
bots are
find
probably
out,
going to be the
Scott.
one that comments.
hey man, still counts.
Also,
Um,
everyone needs to go onto the New Zealand African Cichlid Keepers NZ page and vote for my banner.
Geez,
Well,
now
you're
you're
gonna
being
have to
responsible
explain
for
that a
using
bit
your
more.
platform for bad.
What's that? This is the platform for funny, not for bad.
So they're doing a banner competition, and Ryan submitted the thumbnail from a couple weeks ago, where it was his head sitting next to a blue dolphin with love hearts around his eyes,
And the
So-
discus.
and the discus. Although Dex,
The
who
discus has
is
been
the
photoshopped
admin,
out.
cropped that out.
Oh,
So he just kept the blue dolphin and the head, which I was very disappointed by.
I actually spoke to Dex last night on the phone, and the first thing he said to me was, "Are you going to pull that fucking stupid photo out of the running?" So yeah, but at the moment it's running second behind arguably a pretty good photo from Andrew. But I do think it's kind of
From
unfair
a professional photographer.
that a
So
professional photographer needs to be outvoted for something that's so amateur. But anyway, it will be funny for it to win. Unlikely, but funny.
so that's
Hey,
your guys' homework.
is our listener question, is that replacing our random question, or are we adding an extra question to our podcast?
Well, I was thinking we'll do the listener question, and then depending on how long it is, because like, if
Mm.
someone asks a question that takes like 10 minutes to answer, then probably we'll just jump right into the main topic after that. But if someone asks a question that's a one sentence answer, then we can keep going.
There's a
Okay, that makes
possibility that someone may ask a question that leads us into a topic, and we might end up talking about it the whole time. So
Hey, if you guys ask a good question, if we talk about it for the whole time, we'll give you a virtual high five.
Cam will give you a 50% discount to his shop. Any purchases,
Sure.
with the caveat that excludes all purchases.
No, man, we'll figure something out if that's what floats your boat.
50% off something, off some stock, somewhere.
50% off
the oldest
the
thing that
things
he's ever
that don't
sold.
sell.
Yeah.
Hashtag
50% off a Livingstone colony.
I've tried to sell him for you a few times, but
Bro,
ain't
same.
nobody
I
interested.
did sell it. I did sell a male the other day, so that was
Oh,
good.
yeah, they
Guy
were
had a
coming
big
up
tank,
nice
came
too.
in asking for one. Yeah, I did that, and then I sold one, and now it looks like nothing ever happened because another male coloured up and took over again because they were getting a bit grumpy and a bit fighty. And then, like 2 days later, another male coloured up, and now they're back fighting again. So
They do that.
not ideal. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, so that's your guys' homework. Vote on the African cichlid thing, then send in a question for us for next week, and yeah, that's your entire homework. So hope you enjoy it. So yeah, seeing as that took quite a while, we are just going to jump straight in. So
No,
for
we've got
today's,
to do the
No.
random question.
it's already been like 20 minutes. Ah,
Well, you were
That's a
20 minutes late too, didn't help.
yeah, exactly. So we're going to
You-
jump straight into it.
No.
No,
So
we need the random question.
why? It's taking too long.
Stop being a
I'm in
politician
charge
and
of
avoiding the
scheduling.
question.
I'm not
No,
avoiding the
you're
question.
not.
I'm just telling you no.
I want a
So,
random question.
Random
well,
question.
you can ask it then. You ask it.
You've got one though. That's your job.
Yeah, and I'm just being
Well, you
difficult
do.
now because I'm not
You
getting
could
it
have
my
asked
way.
it by now. You're just like my
We could
children.
have
You
asked it.
do something,
We
no.
could have
and you
answered it, and we
cancel.
could have already moved on. Now you've
You
wasted
moved
all this
on by
time.
now.
Well, I'm the boss, so I can do whatever I want.
What's the random question then? Go on. Quick.
What's the random question?
All right. If you had to be an animal, any
Oh
animal,
no,
what
no.
would you be? Not a fish,
No.
though. You can't be a fish, but
Haven't we
any
done
other
this one?
animal.
Haven't we
No,
done this one?
we did. What's your favorite animal?
Close enough. Give
No,
a
it's not.
decent question.
What animal would you want to be?
I would want to be.
Cam would be a gorilla.
He already is. He's the drumming gorilla from the Cadbury ad, isn't he?
How cool would that be?
I think that I would be a cat in one of those crazy cat people's homes that like does everything for me, and I just lie around all day and sleep and eat like mean as food. You know, it'll be sweet.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
What
And
would you be, Cam?
just randomly attack people and like leave fur and stuff on people and like just try and trip them over and stuff and just be generally like a cat
Just be an
does,
absolute
you know?
menace.
Just be a cat, just a normal cat, you know.
Yep. What would you be, Cam?
Is a crocodile an animal?
Is a crocodile an animal?
Yeah.
No.
I don't think I'd be a crocodile anyway.
No, what is
It's
an
a
animal?
tree.
It's a taka.
I think I'd suit a peacock.
Like the bird.
What? Birds are
Like the
animals, aren't they?
bird. Sure.
Birds
Birds
are
aren't real,
animals.
man.
Birds aren't
Okay.
real.
Yeah.
And the Earth's flat. Get your tinfoil hat off. Birds are real.
Yeah, man. Good choice.
Okay.
Well, I would be one of those giant tortoises, like a Galapagos or an Aldabra tortoise.
Oh, that's cool. Can I change my
That would
option?
be a
Can I
vibe.
do one of them too?
Just like if someone tries to kill me, I got this big ass shell. That'll be a good time.
Then it
So-
takes you like 3 hours to walk from one side of the room to the other.
I'm a tortoise. I got nowhere to be.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So for today's main topic, we're talking about algae eaters and algae eating fish. And well, actually, I suppose algae eaters in general. It doesn't have to be a fish. Foreshadowing.
So
But
we
it
talk
could
about
be-
well.
Could be a
Snails.
snail.
Oh,
See that I'm just planning that idea there for whoever wants to pick that up later. But yeah, so what would you guys say would be your most important things to consider if you're looking at adding an algae-eating fish to your aquarium?
That once they've eaten all the algae, you've still got to feed them because otherwise they die.
That is going to make sense. Is that something that you find people run a problem people run into often?
Yeah, it's a pretty vital part of keeping a fish alive is still feeding them. So like a lot of people go, I've got algae, give me some algae eaters, and then like ottos are pretty bad for it. And then 2 days later they've cleaned up their tank, and then people are not feeding them, but they're eating all the algae. Well, they've eaten all the algae, now they've got no food to feed them, so you've got to continue to feed them.
Yeah, and what
I
you
don't
do feed them.
I don't actually target feed my bristlenoses though, my African tanks, but I do run like don't target feed them, but obviously in the fry tanks they come out when the fry are eating and eat their food, and in the
Yeah.
big tanks there's probably enough algae from the lighting cycle to keep them busy,
And the
Equally,
Africans will
they
be so
probably-
messy that they'll be
Yeah.
throwing stuff around.
Yeah, equally,
Yeah.
that kind of case is probably plenty for them as well.
Yeah,
anytime
and
like-
your tanks will probably be pretty lightly stocked in terms of bristlenoses. Like might be like a 3-foot tank with a handful, 2 or 3 in there, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I only have one
So there's
bristlnose in
more
a tank.
available.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, that makes sense. But for the average person, say you've got, I often see it with like people who put bristlenose in like a 2-foot tank, like a 60-liter tank or something. They're gonna exhaust all the natural food quite fast, just because there's not that much surface area, and then you do have to feed them like not anything crazy, just like an algae pellet or something like that'll be heaps. But there's definitely a problem, I guess, that is quite common, for sure. So yeah, that makes sense. How would you guys go about selecting what kind of algae eater you would be putting in your tank? So like maybe you're trying to choose between like an otto and a bristlenose and a Siamese algae eater. How do you know what is what and what one to choose and what might not be suitable and all that? Where do you kind of start with that kind of thing?
Tank size and tank mates.
Yep.
Like I wouldn't put ottos of my Africans obviously because they just get eaten.
Yeah,
You know,
that makes sense.
because they're quite a soft fish and they're very small fish, and the water parameters will be way off for them too. I would think. Although are they pretty hard? I don't know. I don't know if they're. I think they're hardy, but not hardy. I think you can get good ones and you can get
I don't think they're
bad
hardy.
ones.
I think if you give them more or less what they like, then they'll be happy, but they don't deal with unideal situations all that well.
Your hard African cichlid water for very long.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
know
they'd
people that
last.
have added them to big tanks and they just vanish, and then they see them like 6 months later or something because they're just so little and almost transparent that they're just buzzing around doing their thing. And then I know people that added them, they just vanished because they died. Yeah,
Yeah,
and they just never
that
show
makes
up again.
sense. Yeah,
yeah.
so the tank size and tank mates is definitely a good point. The other thing I'd say is like probably something that I don't think gets thought about enough is like what kind of algae are you trying to deal with or like trying to get eaten? It's like, for example, if you had a whole bunch of like hair algae, like string algae, and you put a bristlenose, they're probably not going to really deal with it that well. But if you have a whole bunch of like the surface algae, like the I can't remember what it's called, but you know that
Diatoms.
diatoms, that's the one. Yeah, if you had a whole bunch of diatom algae and you put bristlenose or snails or something, they'll be much better at dealing with that. So I guess the whole idea is like not all algae eaters are the same.
Not all made
It's not like a homogenous group. You what? Sorry.
Not all made the same.
Exactly. Yeah. So there is also a few different fish that are quite good at eating algae that maybe we wouldn't think about a lot, and that was something I wanted to talk about, and that is particularly a lot of live bearers. So things like mollies and guppies and that they're actually very good at eating algae. So is that something that you guys, well, probably just Cam, is that something you've noticed? Like, do you see guppies, for example, eating a lot more algae than people give them credit for all that?
Not really. Like,
Oh.
particularly looking at black mollies or blackbeard algae, like, I'm wondering if that's an urban myth, because I don't think I've ever seen a black molly eat any blackbeard algae.
Yeah. I don't know if blackbeard algae is the best example.
So, yeah, enough people said it happens, so it must happen. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think they like actually with blackbeard. That's a good point. Like I'm sure they do, but I don't think they make much difference. Like they probably eat like a tiny little bit here and there, but I don't find that they do too much damage to it, I guess.
I think the problem is also that not problem, but the situation is if you're giving them lots of fish food, they're probably like, meh, I don't really need to eat that algae because I'm not really that hungry. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm just gonna kind of pick at it and whatever. But if you did, I mean, it's not really a good idea. But if you starve them for a couple of weeks, they probably would start munching down on it because they've got nothing else to eat. You know, so they'll probably clean the tank up. But does it mean obviously you wouldn't do it unless you're trying to achieve something. There's nothing wrong with starving your fish for a week or two if you're trying to achieve something. But you know. Might be an interesting experiment.
Probably not recommended.
Yeah. If they've got plenty of algae to eat, they're not going to starve. But
yeah, exactly. But I think I've personally found like in terms of like the green hair algae in that, the mollies, for example, are really good at eating that kind of thing. So like oftentimes, if you're growing something like pothos or that out of a tank, you'll always find that the roots will get algae growing in them just because it's like there's like no flow and like generally it'll be right next to the light in there. But what I'll do is I'll take them out of tanks and like just put them in the molly tank overnight, and like it'll be caked in crud, like all different types of green hair algae in that, and I'll put it in the molly tank at night, and I'll come back the next morning and they're like completely cleaned it. So I think that is definitely a easier one for them to eat than the blackbeard, but the blackbeard is a really problematic one I find for a lot of people because it's I don't know 100%, so I'll need you to help me with this, Cam. But from what I remember, it's like very, very minorly toxic, like not enough to cause any damage, but enough where it's like an algae eater isn't going to eat it because it's going to be like tasting real gross, so they don't want to eat it. Which is why I've read that somewhere ages ago. I don't know if toxic is the right word, but like there's like something in it that's like really low level, makes it just the cause of why it would taste real bad for a fish. So given the opportunity, they're gonna avoid it and like rather eat green hair algae, for example, because that's gonna be more tasty for them, or diatoms or something like that.
I was not aware of that. I thought it was just tough or something along those lines.
I think it is tough, but I don't think it's any more tough than like, for example, green hair algae or the other one that I can't remember the name of. But like it's probably why some fish can't eat them. Like I don't know, can't think of an example, but like a real little fish probably can't eat it. But even you'll find like Mbuna or something wouldn't really eat it, even if you put it in, which is a bigger mouth and like kind of got teeth and stuff like that. So yeah.
So I think this is something that maybe you guys are going to have to do is just try some next time you get some in a tank and see what it tastes like and see. Think if I was a fish, would I eat this? And
yeah,
then
but to be fair, I wouldn't even eat good food. This is I have tried Rapashi before.
You quite like Rapashi, though, don't you?
I would not describe it as I like Rapashi, but I have eaten this stuff before, and I would not recommend it.
You come across as the ultimate trash panda, so I think this is definitely a job for you.
Is that racist?
I don't know. I don't think so. It wasn't intended to be.
I think. Also, we did discuss, and I don't know if you ever did it, but if you would give someone if they came into your store, if they ate like a teaspoon of Rapashi powder, you got to film it for the lols.
I decided
if they get a discount.
So, I decided that would be a health and safety liability. But okay, I will tell you a story. Seeing as we're talking about this, I will tell you a story. Now, if anyone from WorkSafe is listening, This is fictional. For
Hypothetically,
everyone else,
That's
this
your
is
friend
not
did it.
fictional.
Your friend did it. But my friend,
Yeah.
one of my friends did this. Yeah.
Well, there's this kid who listens to the podcast, so shout out Ben. But there's this kid who's like maybe I can't remember, like 13 years old, and he comes in sometimes, well, all the time, and sometimes he takes just a scoop of duckweed out of the tank and then eats it. Very disgusting.
meant to be very nutritious.
Apparently, it has heaps of protein, but equally, it's duckweed.
Protein?
So
Okay.
Nelson told me it's got like heaps of protein. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I've never
I've
looked
never
it up.
looked it up. No, I
But
can't grow it. So
you know, he does eat it. So I wonder. Sure, I wonder what it tastes like. Or it just tastes like grass, but still. Not
yeah,
that I've eaten grass
I guess
before.
it's no different than any other plant. So whatever.
Well, I've got some on my finger now.
Well, come on.
Tastes
What's
like
the
microgreens.
aroma?
It tastes like
Microgreens. So like nothing.
microgreens, a little bit crunchy, and then nothing with it.
It tastes
that's
like those
gross.
sort of those sprouty things you can get sometimes that have got nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. That's
In
what
fancy
alfalfa or
restaurants.
something.
Yeah, it had a crunch like those little alfalfa bean type thing, like a little crunchiness, but it definitely had no non-existent flavor.
So for all you guys, we're going to be next week launching our food podcast, where we just go around and try the fish foods only, exclusively, but we'll give them the taste test for you.
Needed salt.
Yeah. So yeah, that I guess I can't remember where we were at. So whatever. I have another question that I think is a useful one. So you will have noticed over the past, I don't know, say few years, this whole nano tank thing really taken off, especially with the aquascapers and that. But if I have a nano tank and I would like an algae eater in there to assist, what would I be best looking at? Probably Cam.
How na-
I'm not going to
how
chuck a
nano
booner in
nano?
there, and that's Ryan's expertise over. So, what algae eater would I be looking at to assist with that kind of thing? Like, obviously, I'm not
The
going to
only
be
thing
able
I
to put
can
a
think of is
Brucellosis in
Otto
there.
anyway.
Well, that's why I didn't ask you.
How nano
Yeah.
is nano?
I'm going to say like 20 liters. As
Okay,
an
what other
like,
fish you
so
got
that's
in there?
like what, 5 gallons, and like the classic nano fish. So like maybe there's like chili rasboras, for example, or
If you can keep them
the
alive.
Danio or just real tiny little stuff, not in
And
boomers.
what sort of algae are you trying to get through?
So this one is whatever dealer's choice. You can like maybe give a few for like if you have this algae, try this one. This algae, try this one.
Okay. And
Whatever is applicable to what you have to say.
What are your water parameters? You clear or tinted, or you've got lots of wood, lots of plants? Yeah,
This one
rock
also
maybe?
depends on the person.
Well, these are all
on
the
the
questions.
situation.
These are the answers I need questions to before I can go down the route of what fish we're going to recommend.
Yeah, well, I was hoping you'd discuss it,
Well,
seeing as we're on a podcast.
You've got your
All
chili
right.
rasbora. So how are you keeping them? I mean, you're really good at keeping them alive. So what sort of environment are you keeping them in? Just a
Way
side
too
note.
soon. Way too soon.
What are you talking about? I thought
Um,
you were DIY keeping chili rasbora alive, daddy.
And I love the arrogance, so I'm going to put my hands behind my head because I've got you there.
Yeah.
I would probably recommend to deal with that manually, in all honesty, and not. 20 litres is pretty small, so like I'm looking at my little Just Tank aquarium here, which is like 17 or 15 or something like that. And I wouldn't be putting any algae eaters into something that small. I'd be just staying and doing it manually. If we want to extend this tank size a little bit, the only real option in the smaller tank is Ottos. But again, if it's not the right algae for them, they're not going to touch it, even though they're a very cool fish. They're only going for your softer algae.
I don't know if I agree with that. There's other algae eaters you could use for a tank that size, I'd say.
Not fish.
Hillstream loaches.
Not
And
if,
a
Maybe
cold,
slightly
and a cold
bigger than
tank,
20
and a
litres.
colder tank.
not if I'm putting chili rasbora in there because they want really low pH, acidic water, lots of tannins, and
That
Hillstream
is-
like the opposite way.
That is true. I did not think about the Chiliospora situation, but
Yeah,
like I
given
was
these
just meaning
parameters,
the size.
You could put autos in there, couldn't you? Because they're tiny little buggers.
no, I think you'd be already pushing it if you've got a group of chilies in there. Personally,
Well, maybe
I'm
slightly
purely-
bigger for the example, but a
purely basing
smaller
that on-
size.
purely basing it on like the tank that I've just set up, and that was in the equation, and I went against it for that reason.
Fair enough. Well, so
So
what
what
would be the
about-
smallest you'd look at it?
What about if
Size-wise.
someone had a like lots of tanks or plans to upgrade and they put a bristle nose in there, and it just was a little like a 2 centimeter bristle nose, and then
Well, they
they've
wouldn't
got
be
like
buying it from me to start with.
a 5 centimeter bristle nose. They took it out and put it in their other tank. To use
They
that as a
wouldn't.
That's
grower
what
tank.
Ryan does.
Yeah,
So yeah, but I manage it and get rid of them when they get too big.
But most people don't have 45 tanks or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, lots of tanks.
I guess where I was trying to go is like I wanted to talk about the relatable size ones and everything like that.
Well, if we push the tank size up to say 50 liters, which can still be very much a nano type tank.
Now you could
Yeah.
house a common or red spot pleco in that.
Do not
You could go
listen
to a
Ryan.
certain you could go to a certain New Zealand fish store and get a whole bunch of
Arrows.
Laguna to put in there.
An
Common
arowana, put
pleco.
arowana.
Yeah, man.
You'll be away. Anyway,
But yes, so say you've got a 2 foot 50-liter tank with some algae issues of whatever type of algae. What would you say would be your best option?
Yeah, autos are an option in that size, again, depending on what you're trying to get through. Depending on the water parameters, some snails can be option, although I don't think they are the best algae either, but they do still eat them.
I disagree. I think they're good. Just depends on the type.
But that's okay.
It depends on the type of what, like diatoms. They're so good at diatoms, I reckon.
They eat algae, but I don't think they eat algae as much as what people believe they do. Is my point.
I agree. They're good at like tidying, I'd say.
Yeah.
Have
Or
you
you've got to
guys
have a lot of
actually,
them to do the job.
have you actually found a fish that eats all the algae and you don't have to clean the glass at all?
No.
Because I certainly haven't.
Not really. Bristle
Yeah,
nose
that
do a
doesn't exist.
good job, but it depends on the
They don't
algae.
eat that green spot algae that you still get on there. You've got to scrape off the real hard to get off stuff. They don't eat that.
Nothing eats green
Nothing
spot algae.
really does.
Mm.
The only thing that
It
eats it
grows
is a
very
razor
slowly.
blade.
Or a countdown one card.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hillstream
Woolworths
loaches
now, wouldn't it?
Hillstream
What's
loaches like you were talking about before, they go okay-ish.
Yeah.
But
They're good at eating.
They're obviously not for everyone, though, are they?
They get
No.
so. I'm gonna say something. They get a reputation as being super hard to keep. Definitely haven't found them to be that hard. They're just not as, I guess, how would you describe, versatile? I don't think. So like they can't go in every tank, but if you give them even not perfect, but like more or less what they want, just put them in there and forget about them, and they'll be happy as. And they'll do well.
I
Don't
think
forget about them, but you know
if you
they're
give
not that hard
them
to look
more
after.
what they want than what you give that you want, if that makes sense, then you'll be okay.
Yeah.
If you push what you're trying to do towards them, you'll be generally okay.
Yeah.
So
and
probably
it
not
doesn't even
use
have
that
to be
much.
perfect, just a ballpark.
Probably not use that much because most people's tanks just aren't suitable for them, right? Just off the bat.
Yeah, I don't know. It is a hard one. I think also because they always come in skinny as all hell. So then, if you buy them when they're super skinny, then I mean, you buy any fish when it's real skinny, you're not going to have that much chance. So I think it is one of those kind of misnomers.
They're also quite cool in that you get all sorts of different species come in, right? Instead of like they're probably ones that are definitely lots of them would be imported illegally because it's hard to identify the species exactly, but they all kind of look the same, but they're all different. So if you're right into them, you could have a good lottery every time they're imported and buy some and try and identify the species and hope they're not all hybrids or something. But yeah.
I get this guy who comes in who always is like, whenever I get new Hillstream loaches in, he gets me to ring him, and he always just like tries to find different patterns than the ones he already has. And like comes in and they're like stand there for like 10 minutes. He's like, oh my god, that one's got stripes. Like, on an angle or something. It's like, I need that one. And he's got like, because he's got like 4 tanks, like 4 pretty big tanks. And like, I swear he must have like 100 in each tank. And it's like his thing. And then he's got like, flatties or whatever. But he's like, this is like his, it's just like
That's
a
cool.
collection thing. He doesn't even really want to breed them with that.
Jam.
He just like, it's like Pokemon. He's like, oh, I need something different. I don't think I got this one. So
Nice.
yeah, and I mean, realistically, even though there's like different species, like they're all the same, pretty much. They're like the
Just
same in
like
terms
a
of
boon.
how you need to look at them.
No.
Hold.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah,
the same in
same
terms of how to
shape
look
and
at them and that. So I guess this is we'll let Ryan talk for a bit about Mbuna because he seems to be a bit sad looking. Do they eat algae?
Trophies would be a better
Yes.
option.
Trophius
You-
and Baboona eat algae. They love it, but they don't eat all algae. They only eat a certain type of algae. So it's funny. I actually had to add bristlenoses to my Trophius tanks because they were getting too much bloody algae in them because I was letting it grow for the Trophius and they weren't eating it. So yeah, but they do
What sort of
like
algae? What sort of algae do they eat?
they eat cyno.
Cool.
When I get cyno
That's
in
weird.
my I get cyno in my little fry tanks that I use. I have little hanging on the front of the tank fry tanks, and because they're directly under the lights, they just go green. So as I'm cycling the fry out, I just chuck them in the tank, and the Trophies clean them for me. They
Do
don't
you
fully clean them, but
do you set up containers of water outside with rocks and get them all algae-fied and chuck them in?
nah, I just
Not that Kieran.
they get enough from the algae in the things in those containers that I put in there regularly. We've also noticed that the different species eat different algae or have different algae grazing sort of temperaments. They're obviously different, live in different parts of the lake or different where there's different algae or different rocks and stuff like that. But I actually went to a mate's house the other day and I'd sold him some Devoisie and some Bishops maybe a couple of years ago, and he's got them in a big massive display tank in his lounge. And he's got lots of big flat rocks covered in algae, and the fish were just doing that natural grazing, like in a big school, sort of grazing on the rocks and stuff when you stood back, and they weren't trying to get food.
Cool.
So that was pretty cool to see. The tank was actually big enough, and the rocks set out with covered in algae enough that the fish were doing their natural sort of behaviour, and that was quite
That's cool. That's real cool.
Yeah,
I know a lot of
and it was-
trophies people do try to grow algae intentionally just so they can get that like crank the light up way too high or leave it on for 10 hours, 15 hours a day, and then let the algae grow, and then they have natural food source and natural behavior, which is always fun.
But the problem with that is you just end up with the glass covered in algae, and then you got to keep scraping the bloody thing.
Suppose you've got to have that commitment to dealing with it, but I think it's worth it. But it is a pain.
So
I think my mate was actually contacting Cam and me and trying to figure out how to grow more algae. He's like, what fertilizer do I use? What light do I use? And all this sort of stuff to grow more algae for them. He wanted to grow this.
Sick people are something else.
What colony of either Mbuna or Trophius would you put in a 2-foot tank to control your algae?
Me, none.
Yeah, well, why not?
I have had fry. I have had fry. I've got a grow out tank, and where the light shines on it, down the wall, there's like a line of algae where the light shines on it is like algae growing, and then where the light doesn't shine, there's no algae. So there's like a little, like maybe
patch.
20 centimeter sort of triangle of algae.
Grazing paddock.
And I put some Firefox in there, and then within like 10 minutes, they were all gravitated to that algae patch and all just nibbling on it.
That's quite cool.
I don't know if they ate much of it, but they were like, oh, food, and they were just nudging away. So it was pretty cool to see. It's cool to see the natural behaviour sometimes, but they don't even clean it enough to make the tank clean. You still got to scrape the glass and stuff, and it's But a 2-foot tank, no, I wouldn't. But you can probably go to other chain stores and they will sell you whatever for a 2-foot tank. That's pretty much the, whatever you need.
The vibe.
What about? I've got a question for you guys. What about I hate them, but those big, ugly, dumb plecos, like the big, like red spots and commons and
They're cool,
albinos
man.
and stuff,
They're
the big dumb
disgusting.
things. Do they eat algae, or do they just sit around and poop and get
When
big
they're
and eat the dumb
little,
stuff?
when they're little, they do, but then when they get bigger, they stop because they start wanting more protein. Like as a rule, so like my big common plecos, they're like nibble on it. Like I still get that the brown algae on the top of these. I got these big terracotta tunnels for them to sit in, and on the top, it's right under like a real strong light. So I get that brown algae on the top, and they'll
Can you
have
can
teeth
you
marks.
can you define protein? Because algae's got a lot of protein in it.
I think
Because you said as they get bigger, they want protein. Is it just that the algae isn't able to sustain them? Or
I don't know
meaty
if that's the
protein.
right word, but yeah, like
Okay.
meatier stuff, whatever you
Okay.
call that.
So probably more substantial volume-wise.
Yeah,
What
like
would their
more like
what would their
I
natural
guess.
diet be? You know, when they're like, so like
Anything.
they're invading all the big mess, all the waterways in America. What are they naturally eating?
Well, over there they're eating manatees and stuff, but I don't know if they're
These
supposed to do that.
crocodiles.
Yeah, but yeah, I think so like when they're littler, obviously they scavenge just like a lot of algae and like dead what would you call them, like flora stuff, like dead leaves and that. And bits of algae growing in there. And then as they get bigger, they're a bit more scavenger and like eating more. If they find a dead thing or if they're eating little like crustacean-y type stuff. From what I remember, but it does vary a lot depending on the exact species. Like obviously where they live in that, it's going to be different things available in that. But yeah, I think as they grow bigger, they can't really eat enough algae to keep themselves going, so they eat more. Not protein in the way that, like, I guess humans think of protein of like, or use the word of like animals, basically. So yeah, but they do.
Google says they live on algae alone, but in the wild, but in your tank, obviously you can't produce enough of it, so they've got to substitute it with something.
That's weird though, because my ones at least, even if I put algae-based foods in, they don't really like it as much as they do like the
You've probably
meatier
trained them
foods.
you've probably trained them and spoiled them just to eat meat.
They probably just get the taste for blood. But even like they much prefer like the carnivore pellets to like the veggie pellets. So I don't really feed them the veggie pellets that much anymore.
I also have another tab up here called eating duckweed, humans eating duckweed, and apparently it is very common in some parts of Southeast Asia for people to use it as a food source.
Makes
They
sense.
use that different species, but yeah, they eat duckweed, so apparently it's really good. And is
Different
duckweed the
species
new
of humans.
superfood? Different species of duckweed, but
Right.
apparently it could be the new superfood. So your young fella that comes in and eats it,
It's
although
insanely
weird,
good for you.
is
We've
it's
got
probably
a
onto it.
we've got a new superfood farm growing.
Yeah, I can't grow it, so yeah, well,
You'll be able to grow it in your fry tank, surely.
I think the overflows take care of it all.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh well, I guess the other thing that I think we should discuss on the topic is, so if you're having this issue or you're thinking of getting the algae eaters to preempt an issue, I think it's important to note that I wouldn't, for the most part, rely on it 100%. So, as we kind of hinted to before, there is nothing that exists, like no fish or invertebrate or anything, that is going to 100% handle all your problems. Like, if you have a tank that has just massive amounts of light or like is just filled with like heaps of decaying food and stuff, you're always going to get algae, and there's not really any way to kind of stop it. So you probably will still need to clean the glass. You probably still will need to be cognizant of it. So that's kind of what I was thinking. What do you guys think of that?
Also, Yeah, they're never going to do it, and you've also got to make sure that you're looking after them. Like you said before, sometimes in a small tank they could eat everything they want to eat or can eat, and then you got to make sure you're feeding them. Usually, I make sure a bristlenose is added to most people's beginner tanks or some sort of scavenger fish like that, because often a beginner will overfeed, and the bristlenose can usually be counted on to clean it up unless someone's gone completely mad. Um, any little bits of food and stuff, and it gives you a little bit of safety margin. So they're usually something I recommend adding pretty quickly while you're learning how much to feed, because if there's a little bit floating around, they'll eat it, and I think it just gives you a little bit of buffer. Also, kids love them, so why not?
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. It is kind of a bit safer of an option for sure. Just to prevent, it gives you a bit of a margin for error, I guess, is the way. So yeah. But yeah, what do you think of that, Cam?
I don't know. I didn't hear the question. I was too busy typing in the private chat. Sorry.
Fair enough.
My bad.
Well,
You have written SAE snails. Also, what doesn't eat algae? Myth or misconception fish?
So we'll start with the start because I don't understand the end part. So, what did you want to say about SAEs? Well, Siamese algae eaters.
We just haven't really touched on them, and they're a common
What are
fish
they?
that people eat.
There's a whole bunch of those sorts of things, aren't there? There's Siamese algae eater, like golden algae eaters. There's flying foxes. There's all that sort of stuff.
Chinese algae eaters.
Some of them get quite big and aggressive, don't they? And some of them are confused for other ones or something.
I think they all get pretty decent size, don't they? Eh?
Yeah, not small fish.
So I'm not exactly an expert on these kind of things. So you take us away, Cam.
So Goldens and Chinese, to my understanding, are just dicks, and all they want to do is fight everything, and don't really.
But they go well with Africans.
They go well with Africans if you must, but they don't really.
Although I've seen photos of Venustus with them hanging out of their mouths, because they are quite long, slender fish. So
yeah,
you do need to be careful what Africans you're keeping them with. But I have definitely seen them with Africans. They're obviously robust enough to handle that. Maybe good for American tank as well, like American cichlid tank with some more robust fish.
If you've got big grumpy stuff like, I don't know, maybe a Texas or something that might be good with.
Would a Texas kill them? They're pretty aggro.
Maybe.
If they got the chance.
Yeah.
But I think they would also, like, if you put an Oscar, I think they would cause trouble with the Oscar. So it would be hard, but doable.
So what about these flying foxes? Is the flying foxes and something else that get confused, or is it the golden algae and the Siamese algae?
Siamese algae eaters and flying foxes get confused.
So what's the difference?
From memory, they've got a different mouth shape, but from memory, the flying fox has the black line that goes all the way through the tail, and the Siamese algae eater stops before the tail.
And the flying fox is the nicer one that stays smaller and more suitable for like a ice tank.
Yeah, flying foxes stay smaller, do better in a wee group. When I say smaller, they still get a good size, but they do stay a bit smaller and they're not as aggro. Have a tendency to eat algae for a little bit longer, and the other ones get a bit more pissy. Prefer to be, from my memory, by themselves and stop eating algae a lot faster.
Well, there you go.
So they're a super popular one for like the aquascapers out there, aren't they? Because they're one of the ones that will eat blackbeard, eh?
Yeah, I think they've lost a lot of popularity in recent times, particularly more with the aquascaping things, because they get disproportionately large compared to with the scapes that people set up.
Makes sense.
But some of the
and they're also very jumpy, eh?
Yeah, some of the slightly bigger tanks that are aquascapey go quite well. Your general home hobbyists that have got a tank and they're trying to deal with some stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. The cool thing with them though is they do this good for the flying fox. If you get a group of them and they kind of like follow each other around, if that makes sense. Like they do have quite a interesting like
showy type thing.
Yeah. Like because they all got the black stripes and like the stripes all align with each other and they like bounce around after each other, which is quite fun.
They're fun to watch.
It's not just it's a fun fish to keep in of itself, but not all fish, I guess. If that makes
As they
all
get
tanks.
So
older,
are they,
they will.
do they need to be kept in a big group? Or is it something you add one of them, or do you add like 10 of them? And they're like, you know, like
They do way better in a group, and you can see their shoaling nature properly when you don't even need a big group. 3 or 4 seems to be okay with them.
it's kind of like a clown loach, but a lot of people keep them 1s and 2s and stuff, but you just don't get the most out of them, and they just kind of sit there and hide in a rock all day, hide in a cave all day, and go.
Yeah, except they come out a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. With
They
the
they do stop eating algae as they get bigger, and that's often when people need to start rehoming them because they stop doing the job that they asked them to do, so to speak.
But they're still fun to keep even at that stage. Just
I agree. They're quite a neat fish, particularly get them in a group and they do groupie stuff.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh well. So what about mystery snails? What's the go with them?
So again, I love mystery snails. I'm a massive fan of them.
Me
And
too.
I think all community tanks should probably have them in there because they're cool. I don't think they're that effective at eating algae unless you have them in a big group. When you've got them in a group, then they can be effective at eating up essentially like slime algae and soft algae and stuff like that.
So your mystery snails, you're talking those the blue ones or the gold ones or both? Are they the same thing?
I'm talking blue ones
Or brown
ones, but I personally don't really like the brown that much. I think the blue's the way to go. Gold apple snails will eat everything in their path. They'll just love a fight, love to eat everything.
Okay, so they're a good algae eater, but they probably eat all your plants and everything else too.
They're a good everything eater. Yeah.
They're actually a much better algae eater, but if you've got no plants,
they eat everything. Yeah.
Then you've got small pest snails, trumpets, ramshorns, and bladders. Same thing. They're not overly effective at eating algae, but they do eat algae. Ramshorns.
Do they though? I don't know if trumpet snails do.
Yeah, I think they'll eat a little bit. Not heaps. They're probably the most likely one that might actually be able to get rid of the green spot algae. That's pretty antidotal, but I reckon they might be the ones that can possibly chew off green spot.
I disagree. I've had tanks absolutely infested with the things, also infested with green spot. So
And they haven't touched it?
no. Unless
Probably,
it's
I'd
like
say-
horrific green spot and they just can't keep up. But
They
I
do
doubt
respond to feeding though. So if you've got a heavy population of those things, you're probably pretty heavy feeding load on that tank, and they're probably eating the food rather than the algae.
Yeah. Well, I feed everything quite heavily in the shop anyway, so that's probably why.
Yeah.
Ramshorns also eat cyanobacteria, which is kind of cool.
So what did you say then?
Ramshorn snails?
Ramshorns.
Yeah.
Are they ramshorns or are they ramshorns?
I know they don't really look like they've got a horn on them, so I'm not sure why they'd be called
They're the shape of a horn of a ram. So it's
the shape of a ram's horn. That's circular like that. Yeah, so you're saying ramshorn, and I was like, "What are you shearing a sheep or something here, or are we talking about ramshorn snails?" Because I don't know what we're doing.
Either way,
we get some guamis and some ramshorns
and some algae.
Do you know that ram's horns are actually like they're in of themselves? They're not that as much of a pest, I don't think. Like I've got also plenty of people who intentionally feed them, like a lot, just to try and grow their populations because like they're cool in of themselves. Like unlike the trumpet snails and that, which pretty much are universally hated, people actually do quite like those the ram's horns. They're cool little things. You can get nice color and everything like that. So I would put them in the mystery snail bucket. Sorry.
Trumpet snails are actually really good in breeding tanks for cleanup crew because they don't eat eggs apparently. They don't eat eggs
but they're
or
also
fry.
Disgusting.
So they're actually really good for cleanup crew in your grow out tanks. So yeah. I killed all one and they haven't come back, so I'm happy.
Well, bro, trust me, I've got some. If you love them so much, I can give you bucketfuls.
I nuked all 60 tanks with flubendazole and got rid of them. So it's good.
Damn, I've nuked tanks and they still it lasts like a month before they start creeping back.
Yeah.
I'm
You've
gonna
still got
give
them
up.
somewhere. Still got them hiding somewhere.
Yeah, because there's so many of them. It takes like 2 of them to survive, and then
Mm-hmm.
they'll inevitably find each other.
Mm.
But yeah, no, makes sense. But snails is one like everyone should have snails. Every tank should have a snail, a mystery snail, bunch of ram's horns, something like that. So yeah,
Unless you got
what?
big fish to eat snails.
Yeah, even if you do, just get rid of that fish and get some small fish.
Get rid of your oysters and get some snails in there, mate.
People say Africans eat snails, but I have not found that.
They
I got
don't.
like big ram's horn groups with all my peacocks and that, and nothing's happened. And everyone's like, "Nah, trust me, they'll get eaten." It's been like 6 months and nothing's happened.
They
So
might pick it. They
we'll
might
see.
pick at them, but they're not gonna eat them in any
Yeah,
massive way.
definitely not keeping up. So that's cap, as the kids say.
Be cool if we could get those assassin snails. That'd be awesome, eh?
Hell yes, it would be cool.
They would be so cool.
They're
Yeah,
quite
I'd be
pretty
down.
as well, eh?
They're real
They'll
cool.
be. I don't like snails, but I think they would be cool.
Yeah, assassins would be rad.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'd like that.
one day.
I would like them.
Yeah. Oh, well, what do you mean by your second part of your thing, Cam, which says, "What doesn't eat algae, myth, or misconception fish"? Is that two
Well, I'm sure
separate
you.
things, or?
No, I'm sure you've had people come and say, I've got some algae issues with these I've been told corridors are going to eat the algae, sort of thing. As an example, I just had the example last week.
Loaches is the one that people always say. Loaches and Synodontis.
Yeah.
Petricola is the one that everyone always. Those 3 is the ones that people get. So they won't. They'll eat worms and bugs and stuff for the most part.
They'll
Obviously, depends on
scavenge around, they'll turn over algae and that kind of stuff, but they don't physically eat it. They'll probably consume some of it in their natural day-to-day foraging,
by
but they're not
accident,
not algae eaters per se. So there's
Yeah,
quite a big group
exactly.
of fish that people think do that. Like I said, cories are definitely one, loaches are another. Any bottom-dwelling fish people assume are an algae eater.
Yeah, not quite the right thing if that's what you're going for. Like you said, they will help. Like particularly, if you've got cyno, for example, something moving around and dislodging it is probably going to help, but it's not
Cories are
going to be
great
the
for
best
turning it
option.
over. Cories
Yeah.
are fantastic for turning it over and getting it back into the water column and that kind of stuff. But they're not eating it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a. It makes sense. Like you look at it and you're like, yeah, I could see that thing eating algae, especially if you're not a fish person, but not quite, unfortunately.
All catfish eat algae. And we're going to
Yeah,
yawn.
exactly. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
God, it's so early. But
Not
yeah,
early.
that is one that would.
It's not
That
early
is-
now, but it was early when we started. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
It
haven't
was
caught
early
up.
when we got here. I don't know if it was still early when Cam got here. Hey-oh!
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that is definitely one that
Hey, don't just gloss over that. That was a
With
good
what?
one. My joke. That was a good one.
funny, man.
It was a good one. You
Thank
nailed
you.
it.
Thank you.
DIY, keeping chili raspberries alive and making jokes, Daddy. Yay.
Cool. So
Just
when all
wanna
your
talk about
trophies bloat on you next week and they all go upside down, I'm looking forward to this one.
No need to get
Trophiest-
personal there, fam.
Trophiest Daddy.
Trophies, Daddy. Trophies, murderer. Murderer.
Hopefully not, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. But yeah, so was there anything else you guys wanted to discuss on the topic?
No.
Can do I want to bring that up? I don't know if I want
Do
to
it.
talk about that.
Just do it.
I don't know if I want to talk about it.
Bring it up.
Do
Are you not ready
fancy
for it?
plecos eat algae?
Some do, some don't.
Okay, done.
Generally, people
no,
don't
no.
buy fancy plecos.
Just want something that's going to cost lots of money and hide all day. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
Generally, people don't buy fancy plecos to eat algae, but some will chew off some of it, others don't. If you're spending a couple $100 on a fancy pleco and you're getting it for eating algae, you should probably not quite doing it right anyway.
Got some random priorities.
Yeah.
Because you
You
do
might
get
really
some
hate
that like
algae.
the full predator, or not predator, but carnivore plecos,
Yeah.
eh?
Yeah,
And
totally.
then you get some that's like the xylivores just eating wood in there, and then
How do
all in between.
how does a pleco become a predator? Like it, they're not going to hunt food, right? They're not going to go and like.
Yeah, they do. There's some plecos out there that hunt like freshwater clams and that kind of stuff, and their mouths and their teeth are designed to rip them open and suck into them and eat them and stuff like that.
But I mean, they're not going to go
Um,
chasing fish around and like.
There are some that do.
If you're like, imagine a discus or something. Like you could imagine a pleco latching onto the side of that and
Well,
eating it.
There's been a problem with this
just
in
in
the
the
past.
same
Isn't
way
it?
that in the same way that some of your freshwater haps are predatorial and they chase other fish. You know, plecos have evolved in different ways to do different things. You've
But
got
pleco
in the same way,
doesn't look like it would be able to.
you've got fish that'll eat algae and only eat algae, and fish that only eat crustaceans. Like it's just how that's evolved. Like when you start really looking at the shape of the mouths and the teeth that are in there, there's a whole lot of differences that are going on in their mouths and shapes and stuff like that.
Well, there you go. I don't want to get into fancy pleco talk because man, that's shit. But anyway, I'm sorry to bring it up. I'm sorry for the listeners to bring that up, but it
You
has
know,
to be
that's
covered.
still one of our best performing. I'm pretty sure it's our best, well, second best episode performance wise was the Corey's and Plecos episode.
Someone even asked for a double up of it just to do it again, didn't they? Do it like a follow
I'm
up.
not too sure what else we could talk about, but we can give it a go.
We'll probably just end up rehashing the same stuff and it'll be a bit boring. But anyway,
Just sit here and be like, yeah, it looks cool, but you never see it, and then just repeat that for an hour.
yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Talk about
Oh.
Sinos.
Yeah, man. Anything else?
No, I think you've probably got some paperwork to attend to, don't you?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, everybody, please remember to send in your listener questions for next week's episode. We very much need at least one, otherwise this is going to be really awkward. So yeah, please do. But yeah,
I'm looking at Andy. I'm looking at Daniel. I'm looking at Thomas. Come on, you guys got to send us some shit in.
even if it's fancy pleco related, we just need
Thomas,
some questions.
No.
Thomas and Tom, or just Thomas?
Both.
We've got Tom does listen too, doesn't he? But he
We've got
quiet.
Tom and Thomas, and we've got Helen. Is Helen, if you're still watching, if you're out
sorry,
there?
Helen. Yeah. Although Helen was really mean about my photo, so she's not really in my good books right now.
What did she say?
With Helen right now.
What did she say?
I think that it was along the lines of "Oh God, no" or something like that. I think
That's not mean. That's just being real.
no, it wasn't supportive. Wasn't supportive of
Keep
the
firing them barbs,
podcast.
Helen.
Feelings.
Keep doing it.
I thought she'd be all right,
Yeah.
but she's kind of like halfway to Helensville, you know, their name. But
Comedy gold.
no. And she keeps Brevis, so like it's okay. But yeah, I don't know if I like her anymore. She's gonna have to redeem herself with a good question.
Oh dear.
All right.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, thanks for listening. And that was not as shit as I thought it was going to be. So it's good. And
So
Cam's just
positive.
sent a message saying that the paperwork is becoming an urgent situation. So we better go so we can take the Cosby kids to the pool. So see you later.
Cool.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
The Doyle rules.